Let me be honest with you. The reason why you're struggling to get followers and more reach on Instagram or any of the other platforms, to be honest, all boils down to this one thing that you're probably all aware of even. And if you ask me, it's actually the hardest part of creating content if you don't know what you do. But once you get it, you'll be able to go from stats like this to these, yeah, and to these, and yeah, maybe even to these. It's gonna happen at some point. The thing we're talking about is obviously hooks. And when all these gurus talk about hooks, all they usually say is, yeah, the first 3 seconds of a reel or a TikTok, that's the hook, and it needs to, okay, let me just speak like a normal person, and it needs to make people stop the scroll. That's it. That's what they kind of say. Great. Now, while all of this is correct, obviously, it's actually just the tip of the iceberg, and creating good hooks that actually transform your channel, because that's what they really can do, actually need a few more elements that you need to hit. But if you don't nail them, on the other hand, all the other strategies out there that we talk about, optimizing the whole retention, writing interesting scripts, and coming up with editing hacks, and using the right kinds of hashtags. But obviously nothing of that is gonna matter at all if people swipe away the second they see a video. And if that happens a lot, the algorithms will just not want to show you out to people anymore, and you'll keep bugging me because we're not even gonna mention this word right here. But going back to creating really good hooks, for YouTube Shorts, by the way, we have this noodle stat swiped away versus kept watching, and generally it seems like having at least 65% plus is what you want to aim for, according to, you know, the YouTube god Patty Galloway. Ideally even more. But how can you get there? What makes us really be hooked, whether it's in YouTube Shorts or Reels or TikTok, and how can we make sure our content speaks to our audience in a way no other content does, aka content, what just happened? AKA content that sets us apart and that once implemented will make your follower numbers go crazy. I'm not even kidding. Like I'm ever kidding. They all say I look like I'm kidding, but I'm not. I'm never. All right, so to help you understand everything just a little bit better, here's an example creator you can all learn a lot from, brought to you by Morgan Freeman.
This here is Andy, also known as Sweatmaster69. Now, Andy's lately been very sad because he cannot seem to get traction on his old socials. Nothing seems to work. In other words, he's frustrated, especially because he's been doing everything Dominic says, including creating good hooks and the consistency part. The number in his username comes from his 1969 Pontiac, by the way. Nothing else, you dirty freaks. Anyway, does Dominic have something smart to say? We'll see.
Anyway, Andy's been trying to grow his fitness-related content to find clients for his workout and meal plans, and obviously he also wants to have a little bit of that social media fame. And taking a look at his hooks, at first glance, they actually look pretty solid, like everybody who comes to me having watched a lot of my content. But on a second glance, he's actually doing a lot of the actual things that matter wrong. Let me explain. If you think about it, the whole hook game basically comes down to a simple currency exchange. You'll give me your attention and time, and I'll give you something that is actually worth your while. That's essentially all that is. The big problem we're facing, though, is with so much content out there, and it's getting more and more, obviously, especially so much good content, it's really starting to get harder and harder to actually create something, some piece of content that is worth your audience's while. And that's the kind of problem we're getting into. Something they're really interested about. I'm not just speaking about the topics in general, which in Andy's example is obviously fitness related content. So on a surface level, it's all good. But on the actual level that matters, it's far from good. And it's gonna cost you your reach if you make the same mistake. Let's take a look at this one, for example. Fast workout routine. I kind of get it. It's short, it's to the point, identifies the workout, right? And fast, also the word fast, to make his audience curious about it. But nobody's actually gonna care, because who's gonna identify with it and how and why? And that is where your knowledge about your audience comes into play. AKA your, what I call your one true fan, AKA your avatars. Lots of people skip out on that part, but it's actually the most important step of your whole social media strategy. And in regards to your hooks, especially the psychographic evaluation, as I like to call it in my creator mentorship program. And it's basically all that it is It's getting to the core of your audience. And the more you dig into it, the more you understand what keeps your audience up at night, for example, or what they really find interesting, on a personal level, the easier it is taking that information and using it to craft hooks that make them really stop and identify with that. And I know how it's like. Most creators are struggling with this. This is why, for example, in my creator mentorship, we not only have lots of resources to help you guide through this process of actually finding your real audience and your actual avatars. We, me and my team will actually do the digging with you, sometimes for you even, building out your avatars to then be able to craft, for example, irresistible hooks. Actually, everything. Actually, the whole strategy. Because, yeah, that's basically what we do. If you're interested, by the way, in working with me, with my team, and transforming your whole brand from the core, DM me the word mentor on Instagram or fill out the application down below. Spots are highly limited each month because, yeah, we actually do spend a lot of time working with you personally, not like other people's in this field. I'm still not going to mention them, but there's some of them that I don't like. Now, going back to Andy, we figured out, by the way, Andy's been a real person. I just had to, if you know what I mean. We figured out basically that his main avatar, one true fan, is actually a busy 22-year-old college student who wants to build their core strength and lose weight, aka Andy himself 3 years ago. And that's one thing, probably that's the case for 85% of the creators that I've worked with. It's themselves just a few years before. So just based on that information that we have right there, instead of saying fast workout routine everyone needs in their life, which is kind of an okay hook, but not really, say something like easy 15-minute home core workout as a busy college student. Instantly better, but yeah, still some issues, some sort of big issues that we're going to talk about in a second. Basically, we've identified some sort of trigger words, trigger emotions, maybe even, that we can use to create way better hooks that make people stop. But here's the thing, unfortunately, that whole thing about understanding the avatar, stuff like this, is only one part of the whole equation. And yeah, the next one is something I'm sure you've never heard before, because I actually haven't heard anybody talk about it. But they will now. What a surprise. I can almost guarantee you that. It actually has a lot to do with our mighty brain and the way it processes information. And I always say the most important principle of creating awesome, good, short form content is to occupy people's brains just enough without overloading it. It's actually a very important sentence. It's such an important sentence that we might need Morgan again, because I paid him already anyway. Might as well say these few more lines.
The brain is a mystery. After all, it named itself. Now, in order to make use and trick people's brains into consuming your content, you need to occupy their brains just enough without overloading it with too many triggers. A fine line only the best can achieve.
Just think of it like that. This and this is basically the same text. Which one's easier to read? Which one's easier for the brain? Now, the same principles apply to your content and especially your hooks. Let me show you some real life examples. Here we've got two reels, or shorts, or TikToks, videos, right? Which one would you say has more views? I'll let you watch a little bit for a few seconds. 3, 2, 1. Okay, good. Probably have it all right. The right one. But why? And that's the important thing right here that you need to understand. Studies have shown that it takes the brain about 50 to 100 milliseconds, that's not a lot, to decide whether they're going to engage with content or not. The brain's immediately looking for ways to find out whether it is actually worth its while to watch. With our examples right here, people are going to see the left one, see a big hand, a tattoo, a wall of text that's very hard to read because, of the background, and they're gone. 100 milliseconds, 20 milliseconds probably in this case even. They're gone because the effort it actually takes for the brain to even untangle all of the information that's in there to understand what to expect is just not worth it. Now, if you look at the other example, we've got a fairly distraught person in the center of the frame with emotions, right? Which already makes us wonder, question in her head, why is she crying? And then immediately, within those 50 to 100 milliseconds, our brain figures out, okay, there's text in the middle of the screen, which is, by the way, way better and easier to read. Tattoo gone wrong in Bali. Wow. Now I'd like to know why, how, what. Just this text along with the first frame with the emotion in her face creates what we call a curiosity gap that simply makes people want to know what happened. I need to know. And that's basically all you need to do in your hooks. Take a look at the first frame of your reel. Is it too cluttered? Is it too hard to read? Is it busy with things left and right? Is the text overlapping? And if yes or not, still try to actively create some form of hierarchy structure. What's the first thing, the most important thing people need to look at? And where can you put this in the frame? And then what's the second thing? And what does that make people think and wonder, right? Let's go back to Andy's example to show you how it's actually done a lot better. What could he have done better with his already improved hook based on the text itself that we talked about, the whole trigger thing? First of all, with his initial better one, we don't really know where people look at first because the hierarchy is not there and it's just confusing. If we remember, he creates content for busy college students that want to get fit, and just based off of that information that we have right here, how can we make this whole thing, what am I doing with my hands, more accessible and easier for their brains to understand? What are the main elements important for his audience? We have a busy college student, which means the home workout because his avatar doesn't have a lot of time. We have workout itself because that's what they want to do. He wants to target people looking for workouts. And we have the college student to identify his main target audience better. And based off of that, all we gotta do is fill in the gaps. And this is what we came up with. We have a workout post that instantly tells people it is about fitness, obviously. We have easy to read text with a good font, easy 15-minute at home core workout, really beautiful for the brain. And just a second later or two, it's the next pattern, small pattern interrupt, the simple words, as a busy college student. It implies that he's a busy college student, just makes people relate with this a lot more and establishes the whole thing immediately and so much better if we take a look at both things playing next to each other. And guess what, my friends? This video was actually Andy's first viral, at least for him, hit. Getting about 200,000 views within just a few days and making, and that's the important thing, making his calendar booked out for weeks. That brings in some cash things, right? Oh, by the way, there's one more thing that I totally forgot to mention. Just creating good hooks is actually just the first step. And if you want to make people come back to your content again and again, you need to follow the steps that I talk about in this video right here, or your reach will also start to tank again. What a strange, why is it so hard?